Hi, dear Nova. Uh, wow, today I was feeling a little nostalgic and I was thinking about one of my times in Indonesia where I learned to scuba dive. And it was at a gorgeous beach, blue waters, and calm and smooth. There was a few of us that were going out that day, and as soon as we got out, we put our heads down and we began to see some amazing fish and some coral and some shells. And wow, I began to drift away from everybody because, I was my own little world, and began to swim around more and more and saw some deeper um, canyons and more brilliant fish. And, soon I began to feel like the pull of the tide and the drift. I really didn't notice it at first, but then soon I was like, I think I better put my head up. So I took a moment and put my head up, cleaned off my mask, and looked around. And all of a sudden, I realized how far I was away from my friends and how far I was away from the shore. I had drifted. I had begun to get dangerously close to getting pulled out with the tide. Life can sometimes be that way. Generally, in life, we drift. Have you noticed that we naturally drift from the things that are actually good for us? Let's think about that. If we aren't really intentional, if we kind of put our life on autopilot, there's certain decisions we tend to make. Like, let's talk about food for a little bit. So do we drift towards carrots and kale or chips, salsa, and cheesecake? You see my point. Do we, when we make a doctor's appointment, do we delay it and delay it, or do we, make it right on time, schedule it, and go for it right away? Probably not. Even our personal time. Sometimes are we that person that makes schedules and clicks it off, and we never procrastinate, or do we spend a little bit too much time on social media and maybe playing some games or watching shows? Let's think about it even in parenting. A lot of times when I was parenting, would I keep my kids' bedtime, make sure we all ate dinner together as a family at the table? Was I really on their spiritual lives and making sure they were growing, or letting them fall asleep in front of the TV, kind of eating what they possibly even would want, and just let them kind of figure out their spiritual lives as they got older? Sometimes even with our relationship with God, do we take all the time that we need to really invest in that relationship with Him? Or sometimes do we just kind of think that He'll just always be there for us, and when we need it, we'll basically just ignore Him until we need Him? Sometimes that's what happens. Drift rarely takes us in the right direction, and generally it takes us further and further away from the main healthy things that we want in our life. In every area of our life, we tend to swim upstream to make it good. I'm going to say that again. In every area of our life, we tend to swim upstream to make it good. You feel it too, don't you? Swimming upstream, it's worth it, but it also takes a lot of effort and intentionality. Sometimes I have the energy, and sometimes I just don't. Like this week, I've really been feeling the pull, of the drift of the tide. I have needed some people in my life to swim with me. Swimming upstream together is so much easier. And that has been so hard during this season. We've been isolated. And for many of us, actually too isolated, and we're drifting. Drifting isn't really just a 21st century phenomenon or a COVID phenomenon. The early church had similar issues, and the book of Hebrews tells us, "Be careful then, dear brothers and sisters. Make sure that your own hearts are not evil and unbelieving, turning you away from the living God. You must warn each other every day while it is still today, so that none of you will be deceived by sin and hardened against God." So who in their right mind, who knows a living, loving God, who's incredible in all of our situations and has our back, would actually turn ourselves away from God? Who? Me? You? All of us? That's the drift. So how does that drift begin? A lot of times it just begins right here in our heart, No one knows it, right? They can't see it. Sometimes it's a little thought, sometimes it's a little action, sometimes it's not an action. The drift doesn't show in most contexts, right? We can hide it from a lot of people by just going through life superficial. The only way it really shows is in circles. Circles, right? Think about the family. It's the smallest circle. It's hard to hide from family. Maybe they don't know the details, but they usually know when something's wrong. So, what if we had more intentional circles for ourselves? Like the verse says, to encourage one another. You know, we need to be in each other's lives so that when we begin to drift, we have relationships that can encourage us back on track. No one can do this unless they actually have access to you. And this has been a huge problem these last few weeks. We deceive ourselves by our own self-talk. Have you noticed we start believing the stupid things that we tell ourselves? Some of us just need to find someone to tell us so that they say, you're crazy. Don't believe that. Do you know what I mean? That is the power of community and circles. The drift begins within. So we actually need to allow someone in. So how can we encourage each other and not drift away? You know, sometimes it's just by asking good questions and then actually listening. Asking things like, how are you doing? You know, really, what is God teaching you? How is your marriage? How has this been tough on you? What are you struggling with? How can I pray for you? Really asking those kind of questions. And in the book of Thessalonians, it says, so speak encouraging words to one another. Build up hope so you'll all be together in this. No one left out, no one left behind. I know you're already doing this. Just keep on doing it. You know, we at Terra Nova really are all about circles, and that's been hard lately. But this last weekend, we launched our life groups for the summer, and we really hope that each and every one of us can get in a circle, to get in a life group. Many of us have lost friends to moves. Maybe you're new at Terra Nova. Maybe you've just come lately and you need a good, healthy circle to be a part of. And this is a great place for you to begin, to get involved. And, you know, there's a lot of groups out there. There's a lot of social groups. But to be involved in a group at Terra Nova where Jesus is the center, we've seen that really change lives. Is it scary? Yeah, it's scary. Meaningful? Oh, yeah. Almost every growth point in my life has come as a result of being in circles with other people. People being able to share into my life and to build into my life and say some things. So I just want to encourage you to look over the life group opportunities, begin creating circles, enjoy the richness that God has by doing life together, connected and encouraging one another. A life connected is beautiful, healthy life that God intended for his church. And we really want that for you, for me, and for Terra Nova. God bless.